Okay. I will give it to Colin.
Is something to come out so that we know when those portals are up, or those modules are up in the portal, so that we don't have to go back and check everything?
So you have the ability to create, not necessarily an account, but you have the ability to sign up for alerts from the portal. So you can sign up for an announcements alert, and then anytime something is posted or an announcement is made, you'll receive an email saying that this has been posted or there's an announcement.
Okay.
And once you set that up, you can choose to take it off as well later on if you.
Are those requests validated against being users of the portals or anyone?
No, because the portal is public, anyone can sign up for email alerts. So if you have a parent that wants to know if there's a key date or a new training module or something like that.
Are the practice and training tests things that the kids can go on and do at home as well?
Yes, the practice and training tests, a parent can go and log into those things from the portal. They can click on that link from the portal and they'll be able to, even if they want to. The parents want to ease their own anxiety. That's something that will be possible. Any more? So what is the secure browser? The secure browser is a program that is designed to ensure our test security by preventing students from using any other programs or websites during testing. The secure browser is the only piece of specialized software that you're going to need to install on your computers, and you will need to install it on each computer that you use for testing. So you follow that secure browser link on the portal to download the latest version of the secure browser. Those of you, I know some of you were involved in the field test. That field test version of the secure browser you will not be able to use for testing. Before taking a test, all other applications need to be closed. If you do not close applications, when you attempt to sign in is unable to sign you in because Skype is running or Excel is running. Now I know there's always some concerns that, I don't know what if something's running in the background that's going to prevent me from testing. The best answer to that is this is a good reason why when you do the practice and training test with your students before testing that you do so during the secure browser. So that if there's anything, it will be caught in the practice test environment before we're at the high stakes summative testing. We now have available the version of the secure browser for iOS 8 that's compatible, those iPads with iOS 8. So this is the secure browser download page. It has your links to download the secure browser for Windows, everything from XP on all the way up to 8.1. Various versions of the secure browser for Mac OS X 10.5 and up all the way to 10.10. For various flavors of Linux, Ubuntu, Fedora, and a few others. We have Chrome OS. Currently, we support versions 31 through 39. Those of you that wish to use Chromebooks for testing, manage those Chromebooks so that it stays at the latest supported version. And don't let Google update your version automatically. We also have versions for Android and for iOS. And for those mobile versions of the secure browser, you will download via your respective app stores for those particular tablets. For those of you that have some different setup, say the question is, I have some thin client set up versus the server, is that supported? You can find that information on the system requirements for online testing on this page. Also, those of you who say, the question, I have 100 computers at my school, do I need to go and install a secure browser individually 100 times? You should be able to push your secure browser onto all your computers using your group policy as you would normally. And then you can have more information about that on the secure browser installation manual. It's also, you can go via this page. Are there any questions? Yes?
You have to uninstall the normal browser, the former secure browser, so that you install it over.
When you install a secure browser, it should be uninstalling the old one automatically. If it does not, it is no problem to have both versions on the computer. computer. Any more questions? Yes?
Does it require flash, or does it want flash incorporated with it?
Should not require any flash installation. It can be installed on its own. All right, I think we're going to move on to the next stage, which is accessing our various AIR systems, beginning with the Test Information Distribution Engine, or TIDE.
So earlier I discussed logins and passwords, and so the state, as I said, the state will be adding all of you, your user information into our TIDE system. And once they create your account, you'll receive an automated email telling you that your account has been created. And so AIR uses a single sign-on system, so once you create your account, you'll use that username and login to access all of the AIR systems. And once you sign into one, you don't have to log out and log back in to access any of the other ones. And as you can see in the top, there's a drop-down menu, and this drop-down menu will always show the system that you're currently in. And you can navigate and click that system, and then the drop-down appears, and you can navigate to whichever AIR system. And you may notice that the digital library is not on this drop-down list, and that's because the digital library is provided by Smarter Balanced, not AIR. We're working to federate these two systems so that in the future you'll be able to use the same username and password as part of the single sign-on system. But this year it requires a different password and login. Yep.
How will the state put in the login information? Is that coming off of I4C? Is that coming off of the thing that we had to register for a state test coordinator? Which system is that coming from? I just want to make sure we've been enrolled at some point.
I know that the student information they'll be creating student accounts from I4C. I'm not sure where they will be getting the information for the district accounts, but I can find out for you. I'll ask. The account should be set up, we're shooting by the end of the week. So end of this week, early next week, you should be getting an email that an account has been created for you.
Do you go over how to share digital library?
I actually cannot speak to the digital library. I can talk to the state about how you'll get the information to prepare the feature stuff and get back to you after the break.
I know there are a lot of modules for training on the portal. Is there a way for the administrators to see that the teachers actually did do the hand scoring system or the test administration?
There is not a way to track whether teachers have looked at the modules. I guess that would be an honor system.
Okay.
But there is, Colin will discuss it later, but there is something called a TA certification course that is optional, but you are able to track in the systems whether a teacher has performed it or not.
But not for hand scoring.
Or not for the network. Is there any, yes?
Will the state also be setting up teachers?
No, the district, you will be uploading teachers. So the state will upload the district and the students. So I discussed that you'll be receiving an automated email once the state has created your account. And this email will include your welcome to TIDE, a secure temporary password, a link to the login page, as well as instructions for creating a new password. So when you go to log in the first time, you'll be prompted to change your password as well as to set your security questions. So TIDE is the first AIR system that you will see. And TIDE is organized by tasks. It's used for multiple things, such as you'll manage the user information and account. This is where the district and the school coordinators will go to file appeals if necessary. And the information that one can access in Tide depends on the user role. So different users have different access to information. So the districts will have access to more information because some sensitive, we don't want the test administrators or teachers to be able to view all of the information.
So when you say you and when you're talking about our account information being sent from the state, who are the you and your? Is it only?
Sorry, when I say you, I'm talking about the district.
Right, but who in the district does the state know is going to get this info if we haven't set anything up yet? During the break, I'll ask where they're pulling the information for their district accounts and get back to you. Okay, because we have to sort of know, because if it's our assistant superintendent or superintendent, they have to know that they're going to be the one getting it. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So
I'll see. I'm not sure where they're pulling the information. We'll get back to you after the break.
okay.
So, and then here's a list of the user roles. So there's a district administrator, a district coordinator, a school coordinator, test administrator, and teacher. And you can see that the district administrator has access to all of the tasks in Tide except for one, and that is ordering testing materials. So if your school needs paper materials for some reason, the district coordinator role is the only person that can order that material. So the district coordinator has access to all the tasks in Tide. And then you'll see that, for example, the test administrator can only view and edit student settings and accommodations, as well as download and install a voice pack that's available in Tide. And these roles are in a hierarchy, so each role can affect the role below it. So a district administrator can set district coordinator accounts, but a test administrator cannot do anything for the school or district level.
Can I turn just for a second to the student data? So during the field test, we upload all the student data with all the combinations in, but now you're saying I proceed to that from a state level, we won't do that?
The state will upload the student demographic information, which they'll pull from I4C. And then you are the district, the teacher, will upload the student settings and accommodations.
So we'll still do the CRF file, just like the field test in the same way?
Yes. So the only difference is the demographic information will only be accessible by the state. They'll upload it and add it.
So that would include the ID numbers to the Excel spreadsheet, so fill that in?
Yes. I will.
But it will have to be started with student ID numbers and student names, right? Like, we don't have to do that.
I can pull it up, but you'll have to enter all the student information for the settings and accommodations if you upload them.
Right, but you know the registration manager feels that there's an Excel spreadsheet that we have to fill out. We're not doing that?
So the registration you did you do this directly in Tide or? Okay, so that's not going to happen anymore. This is all going to be done at the state. So what's going to happen is all you need to do is make sure all your information is in I4C. They're going to pull it and they're going to send it to us on a monthly basis. So if you do see anything that's inaccurate in Tide once we load it, you would need to update the I4C system and then the state would re-pull it again. So what was done for a field test in terms of you directly uploading student information into Tide won't happen this year.
But we do have to do an Excel spreadsheet to get the accommodation.
Yes, yes, and that will be tied to the SSID. So if you need the SSID, and you'll say this student needs ASL, you know, whatever accommodation they need, that will be uploaded directly into Tide.
Are there any other questions about the user roles? Okay. So navigating through Tide, you can navigate through the icons or the tabs and subtabs you'll find along the top. And this is the screenshot for a district coordinator. So you can see that they have the on-time orders as well as additional orders icons. So not everyone, district coordinators are the only ones that will see this screen as it is. So the first task is the Manage Users task, and this is the tab you'll navigate to when you go to add user information. So there's two ways you can add users. You can add users individually, or you can do an upload, which we sort of discussed. There's a CSV or an Excel template that you can download from Tide and then fill in with the user information, and then upload that file to Tide. And you can see which information is required. And the email address that you created for this account will be their login for all of the AIs. So this is, the next task I'm going to talk about is the student information tab. And it's come up already, but the state will be the only ones that can upload students into Tide to create their accounts.
So when you were just talking about users, that's all the teachers, the test administrators, all those other roles.
Yes.
Is that users is not students, it's all the other roles?
Correct.
Okay.
And then you'll want to make sure all of the student information is correct in I4C, because that is the information the state will be pulling, and the students will only be able to test it in the school and grade that is entered into the I4C system.
So on that, should a student enroll in your school during the testing period, you then have to contact I4C, update that information, and they will nightly update Tide?
Yes, that student will need to be added in I4C, and then the state will pull a nightly report that will be sent to AIR.
So again, I'm going to ask a question, so those students who are not placed in a home district, how will the test going to be administered and that information should be filled?
So a student in a private school,
At a separate special education placement?
It will be up to the district to make sure that that student is, well, the public school to make sure that that student is in I4C. And so once they're in I4C, they'll be added to Tide, and then they can be assigned to their private school or their special education. Does that answer your question?
No, you just said public and private, that's different.
So the situation is you have these students in the private school, right? And you're trying to find out who they're actually supposed to be associated to so they can be loaded in Tide. So do these private school students, are they associated already to a public district? Okay, so that public district will be responsible for making sure those students are loaded into their I4C and loaded into Tide. So yeah, there is not an institution that we're going to set for the private school. It's going to be through the public school jurisdiction.
How do they get tested?
So they will be in that public school jurisdiction, and then what happens is you would either, if there's a private school teacher who's going to be administering a test, they can then have a user account created for them for that student in that public school district, and they would then be able to administer that test to the student.
So are they going to have multiple logins because they'll be associated with multiple?
It is possible that some TAs may have multiple logins for each of the jurisdictions they're part of. That's a good question. So a lot of it is they're being tested at a district, but they're being reported somewhere else, is really the situation that these students are in. We'll talk to the state about how to handle that special group, and then we'll send the information about what categories these students should be placed in.
I have students, we have high school students, we send our high school students to various high schools, some of them go to some schools that can go on. They're in our I4C. How do I make sure they get tested? Or how do we have to create user accounts for people at those places?
So they're going to be testing, those students are going to be testing in public schools in Vermont. And so that's actually a good question. We've actually gotten that question in Vermont about New Hampshire students, So we're working with the two states to discuss how the information would be sent back and forth for those students who are testing out of state.
So we have students in our district that attend the charter school and are homeschooled. So do those students have to be tested through this process, and are we responsible for making sure that those students are tested?
That's a question. I can't answer it right now, but we do have, we're grabbing all the notes on these special situations, and we'll work with the state so that we can give guidelines as to what to do if you're in this situation, what to do if you're in this situation. I can't respond to it right now.
And who's going to receive that information when you?
Well, we can either post it to the portal, but I believe that the state will also be sending information about through email too.
If a student enrolls in the school after we've begun testing, with the old kneecap stuff, we used to try to figure out what they already were tested on and then just start from where they left off. Is that what we do with this?
If a student joins after testing, the CAT test will actually go with the student. So if they hadn't finished it earlier, they can finish it, when they move to the new school. The performance test, I believe, is going to start new because it's based on the classroom, the topic that school is assigned to. There are ways, and we're going to discuss a little bit about it with the participation reports to see, look at the student who's now joined your institution, your district, and see what they've completed, what they haven't completed, and what needs to still be completed.
Is that true if they've come from out of state?
Out of state, I have to check on that.
And just a little add-on, if they come after we've completed our testing, do we still test them?
If they completed, I guess the question is we'll have to see if they've already completed the test. They may have already taken the test first and then therefore they're done and you don't need to do anything. If they have not taken the test and you've finished testing, I believe you would still need to complete, the students will still need to sit for the test.
So is there another?
I just, when you go through a little special case for that district kid, I think just we would appreciate your invitation. I know, like with ECAP, you need to inform homeschool families. Just inform them that they can take it if they wanted to. Of course they didn't, but usually. But do we have a requirement to notify the school kids
That they should be taking the test or?
that it's available, or, yeah, I don't think so.
I don't know. That's something that we would need to discuss with the state, and then we'll get back to you on that. So if there's any of these special homeschool or private school that you have not addressed right now, and you know that it may be a problem based on what we were talking about, please come to us during the break, and we'll jot down these special cases so that we can at least make sure that there is an action for each of them.
So then this slide just has a few links where you can get more information about the I4C system. And each school district needs to have an I4C coordinator. So then the student information, as we said, the state will upload the students, but the user will have the ability to search for students and then edit their settings and accommodations. So there's various ways you can search for students. You can just do a broad search for all the students in a specific school. You can enter their first or last name or a specific SSID. And there's also additional search criteria where you can go if you wish to search for a specific demographic area or gender or students with certain test settings. And so if you wish to do student settings, you can change them individually if you find one student. But if you have a lot of students that you need to initially upload the settings or accommodations or change, you can go, we have the Excel template and the CSV file and the Upload Students Settings tab. And you can download that that file and then populate the information and then upload that to Tide. Similar to how you can add users as a group. And a new feature this year, if you took the field test, yes, sorry.
With the, like the accommodation settings, can that also be done through I4C, or is that something that you have to do once students come from I4C, you have to go into Tide and do it there?
That is something that will have to be done in Tide, after the student is in Tide.
And what's the link? Is it the test ID, the Smarter Balance ID?
The SSID is 9 digits.
But that's the link.
That's the link that will tie us to. So when you upload the test settings or accommodations in Tide, it's going to, you're going to put the Smart Balance ID. It's going to look through the database and place that accommodation to the student with that ID.
Okay.
Sorry, I mixed blank and link in my brain. Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. We upload into I4C uploads to the state, and the state sends it to you. We are responsible at the district level for the addition or inclusion of accommodation.
No. You will enter, the district will enter the student information, their demographic information in I4C. And then the state will pull that information. And then the district, once that student is in Tide, the district or the school can assign the settings and accommodations. That does not have to be at the district level. It can be at the school level.
So those accommodations and modifications, do they say year to year? Or are we going to be doing this every single year for all of the students who need accommodations?
So every year we start the school year with a clean slate. So every year the state will be creating new district accounts, and then the districts will be adding the users again. And we do this just because students move, people get married, the names change, and we just want to make sure it helps limit confusion and errors in the system.
So if the person is going to enter the accommodation, which role should they be assigned?
They can be assigned any role except for adding them is any role except for a test administrator or a teacher. So a school coordinator or a district coordinator or a district administrator. So the new feature this year are testing tickets. And so the test tickets will provide you with the student's first name, their last name, as well as their SSID. And you can print these tickets directly from Tide. And then it will be 8 per page, and you can cut those up and give them directly to the student so they have their information in front of them when they go to log into the test. That'll make it easier for the third grader remembering their whole SSID. It will save you the time from helping each student individually.
Can those tickets be batch printed by teacher or classroom?
It depends on how you search for your students. They be by classroom or your test administrator.
Okay. So we can then, in this Tide system, associate a student with a class or teacher.
Yeah, so in Tide, you can actually create class rosters or any kind of rosters. You can bunch your students up based on all grade 3, or you want a certain student, students to be tied to a teacher. So you could create a class roster that would say, for Teacher Smith, I want all these students to be part of that roster, and then you can print tickets from that roster too.
Excellent, thank you.
There's a password for every segment of the test.
A separate password. So we'll go into it a little later, but once you start a test, it generates a session ID. So when the test administrator starts the test, it generates a session ID. And that session ID lasts as long as the test administrator keeps that a test one day and then you go in to finish it the next day, there will be a new session ID. And we recommend, that won't be on the test ticket, so we recommend that you write it on the chalkboard or a whiteboard so that the students can see it.
So a student has one test ticket for all the sections.
Yeah, because the test ticket just contains their SSID, their personal information that they'll need to enter, so that won't change. Yes.
SSID?
The student information number.
It's also going to be known as the Smarter ID that you got from the car.
Not to generate that.
No, it's a new, I think it'll be referred to as the Smarter or the Assessment ID. It'll be a specific.
If you associate students with a teacher or put them in rosters and then they need to test with a different teacher or group, does that mess things up, or does it reduce your flexibility in what students test with each other?
No, it does not. And rosters are an optional feature.
So you don't have to do that?
No, you don't have to create rosters. That's an optional feature.
Is the SSID automatically generated, or do we have some control over what it is?
I think this may be a good time to have Mike and Lauren chime in about some of the specifics, because this interaction between I4C and Smarter Balance is really are the details we're working through. Mike.
Okay. So I'm Mike Schwartz and Lauren Heider. We both, if you don't know, work at the Department of Education. Can everybody hear me out there? Sure. We thought, maybe we talked from the back, but we need activity. We need to get some physical activity. So Lauren and I are both trying to help out with this integration from through I4C into the system, and this is all new to us too, but we'll tell you as much as we can. So just to be clear, there is a need to be able to ensure that all the students are registered through the I4C system, through the state. And so just the way many of you might have been familiar with registering through NECAP, where you used to submit an I4C submission called the NECAP label submission, it's the same exact thing. It's now called the student roster submission. It's the same field, it's the same format, the same everything. So the flow will be, you submit your students through I4C under the student roster submission. That information every night will get sent to AIR, and the next day you'll then have access to those students in Smart Balance accounts. Because of state law, this past year, we are no longer allowed to use the SACID to identify a student. So a little complication, our lives weren't busy enough. We have to figure out a little way to make it a little more difficult. Now we have a new assessment ID. It's called the Student Assessment ID. The first two digits will be the year, because it can't be the same each year. That makes it more complicated, of course. So the Student Assessment ID will be 9 digits. The first, I think it's like 9, something like that. First two of the year. So when you submit your I4C submission, you submit it with SACID. There are some reports on the I4C workbench that you'll get. One of those reports will show you the SACID and this new ID. If you are familiar with NECAP submissions, you can have an assessment grouping. So when you submitted your NECAP labels, you would say, for each student, this is the way I want the student grouped. You might have used a teacher's name, you might have used a homeroom number, same process. So that assessment grouping will be submitted, and now you can then print out these tickets. You can print out lists, all based on that assessment grouping and sorted that way. So this should flow similar to what you've done in the past. When you upload these in I4C, there will be several reports. So as soon as you upload them in I4C, you'll be able to print right in I4C these test tickets. You'll be able to print a list right away of all your students, and you can export it to Excel and sort it however you want. So hopefully that process will work well. We know it will work well. As with, I believe with NECAP, I know like in your beginning of your files, you had to submit your out-of-district placed students. So it's the same thing. In that student roster submission in I4C, you should include not just the students who are probably in your public school, but also the kids that you're responsible for who are placed in out-of-district schools. And you put the school number there. And again, we'll upload that night to AIR. And so AIR will now know that Mike Schwartz is in this private placement. That private placement, now their test administrator, district administrator, whatever the title is in the I system, would be and then be able to see that student right away. The reports that you get in I4C when you upload your assessments will have this new assessment ID in them. There'll be one separate report that just has the link if you want to use that. If you've got the sophistication to load that into your own student information system, you'll be able to do that. All the reports that come out will have this new assessment ID. So how many millions of questions did that generate?
So in terms of that, when you upload into I4C, that grouping category that we create locally, that will be transferred over into Tide. So we'll be able to aggregate data using that grouping in Tide, correct? So in the past, we've had a field in I4C that we could use to group students. I'm assuming that that grouped field will also be transferred into Tide, so from Tide we can use that same field.
Sure. So if you've already populated that field with information, it will, when you search for students, we will have that field there so that you can, sort by that information, extract the information in an Excel spreadsheet, and then do further sorting as well.
Are there additional user-defined fields in Tide so that we could kind of skip that part and add those fields at a later time? The reason I'm saying that is right now we're being asked to submit our I4C student list right now, and the students are just beginning the semester, they're changing classes, I want to group them by period and teacher, and that will be more solid in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm sorry, let me clarify the I4C submissions. You don't have to submit them today. They're open today, but you just have to submit them before you're ready to test.
Okay.
So if you want a child to take an interim test tomorrow, you need to submit them today. If you're not going to, if kids aren't going to go online until, after March 16th, then you can definitely wait a couple of weeks. So I apologize, we'll make sure that's clear. There's certainly much not next week for I4C folks and maybe send out a clarification.
Thank you.
Tide will always be updated based on the nightly files that we receive from the state. So if you later on update I4C, it will be reflected in Tide.
Are there, though, again, just going back to that question, any user-defined fields in Tide by which we can re-aggregate data?
So whatever you populate in that field in I4C will go into Tide. So if you want to then extract it from Tide, you can certainly do so. But I guess what you're saying is it something you can search for in Tide, or?
Well, for example, there are 5 towns that send students to our school.
Yes.
I'm going to need to disaggregate the data eventually by town.
Mm-hmm.
So can I add in Tide a town field that I put in directly into Tide so that when the data comes back, I can get it out and then disaggregate it by the town?
So you can't add any additional fields in Tide. Okay. So that layout is set, and that's already determined by the state and AR when we're uploading information into Tide. However, if there's a field that's already, information that we're capturing, if you want to update the field with more information so that it's reflected in Tide, you can certainly do so. You just can't add any more pieces of data to Tide.
Thank you.
You had said that in the student roster submission, previously in the NECAP labels, we have the ability to add another basically sort field, which she had said then becomes part of the sort function within Tide. Can we have more than one piece to that field? I think it's kind of explaining to what he was saying.
What do you mean by more than one piece?
So, NECAP labels, we used to have the ability to put an aggregation field in. Whether it was homeroom period, whatever. She then elicited that once we put that in our student roster submission, it then becomes part of the search or nail down feature of Tide. Do we have the ability to put more than just one thing in the student roster submission? I think goes back to what he's trying to say.
So the student roster submission just allows one assessment grouping field. You can use that however you want. So you could have a prefix, you could have the first few characters could represent a school and then represent a grade or whatever. So you can work with that, but there's just the one field. The other thing I dare mention is that I'm not sure if part of the question is getting to looking at the results of the student assessment. Is that what it is, or is it about administering the assessment?
Both.
So I just make sure the current plan is that as soon as we get the results, we'll put them into the Performance Plus as well. So within Performance Plus, you'll be able to have the results, and you can add all the groups you want. You can sort it in any which way you want. So that's just something else to think about in terms of realizing you'll have some more flexibility in how you look at the actual assessment results. Okay, so Laura and I will be here the rest of the day and the rest of the morning, and afterwards feel free to come up and ask some questions. I know there's a lot more slides to go, so we should probably get back. The only other thing Lauren wanted me to mention is to make sure it's clear that student demographics, I know that term was used before, typically people think of race and gender and maybe FNR status or status. None of that is going to have to go into the Smart Voucher at Air School. So when you register, it's just the SATSID and the date of birth. No other demographics have to be uploaded into the system.
So everyone, all the students will probably be set up as male white, so that everyone is consistent. So if you log in and you see Catherine as a male, that's because everyone will be set up as male. So there is no individual demographic information in the TIE system. Does that make sense?
Well, last year we had to put in all that stuff. So we're not doing that now?
You mean for the practice?
For the field test.
You won't have to do that.
At no point will we have to do it.
No point.
Oh, that's nice.
We should end on that note.
So I'll start to go through these. There's only a few more tasks and tasks I'm going to talk about. I'll go through them a little quicker so that we can get to the break. So this is the orders tab, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, that only the district coordinators have access to this tab. So the district coordinators, now we're encouraging everyone should be taking online assessments, but if you should need paper material, the district coordinator will go and order it through this tab and guide. So then the appeals, if you need to create an appeal, the district administrator, district coordinator, or school coordinator, you'll go to the create appeals tab, you'll choose the type of appeal you're going to submit, set your search criteria, and then TIE will pull up all the tests that meet that criteria. You'll choose the correct test, enter your reason in the text field, click create, and then it'll be sent to the state for them to approve or deny. And once you create, yeah.
I have a question about the paper. So this isn't done student by student? You could say I need 16 copies or 20 copies of some grade or something?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
You're welcome. So once you create your appeal, you have the ability to view it. So here we're searching for submitted for processing. So if you created it and you just get a little wheel and you're not sure if it actually went through, you can search and check and see if it's indeed went through. And then you also have the ability, we mentioned the grace period extension appeal. So if your class has a fire drill and you need to request an appeal for your whole class, you can upload appeals. So you'll have the template that you download and then populate with the information and then upload it to TIE.
Is there a section in here also that if you have a medical situation, a kid is in a car accident in the middle of the test and they're not going to complete the test during the time period, is that put in this appeal process, or is there another place for special medical accommodations?
So that would not be appeal. That's just if you need an action required on a particular test for a student. So in case there are situations where the student can't take the test, either refusal, absence, or a medical situation. Last year, I don't know if you recall, in the field test, we actually had a couple field in the TIE that allowed for teachers to go in and select the reason why a student couldn't take the test. And that's something that the consortium is looking to do again for this year. It is not currently set in TIE, just because the administration hasn't started yet, but that is something that we think might be valuable again for this year for your TAs to explain the reason why a student could not take the test.
In the past, again, with NECAP, there's been a whole series of forms and medical documentation and all of that. That's all gone.
I mean, you would need to work with the state on, and we can follow up with the state as to what those procedures would be. If you mark it in Tide, they may ask for follow-up as to reasons why, but I just want to let you know the system can actually allow you to mark it in terms of the process for getting it approved and stuff. We'll need to talk to the state.
Okay, thank you.
The last thing I'll discuss regarding Tide is the download voice pack function, and all user roles have the ability to download this voice pack. So AIR, we're providing a Windows compatible voice pack that students that need text to speech you can download for their use. During our testing, we've realized that Windows voice packs, their native voice packs vary between quality, and this voice pack is a high quality that we feel is good for all students if they don't have a native voice pack that they're used to. So if they're used to how a specific voice pronounces words, by all means use that, but if they're not used to one, we recommend downloading the Neo Julie voice pack.
And that's only Windows.
Only Windows. The Macs, their voices are all consistent and good quality that they found. So Macs and Chromes and Androids.
And again, you said by the end of the week, you're hoping that we'll be getting the, so we'll have access to it.
Yes.
Okay.
We're hoping by the end of the week, early next week. So that's the overview of Tide. We'll take a 10-minute break now, and we'll be around to answer any of your questions.